Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Today's video is an announcement and also an exclusive first look at an all new product from Hatton's. A massive thank you then to Hatton's for letting me do this announcement. It's always such an honour to help bring a new product into the world. And this product is especially unique and interesting. It is this, the Hatton's Genesis BR Blue and Grey generator coach. And this thing is very mysterious and unusual in real life. It did exist, it's not just some made up nonsense, but very little is known about this coach in real life. It was built in 1898 and it was thought to be a Great Eastern lavatory coach originally, but here we see it as one of the very oldest pieces of rolling stock ever to receive the BR Blue and Grey livery, which is absolutely fascinating. So what is the story of this then? Well, it was part of an exhibition train, apparently, of which a cinema coach was also a part. And there are very few photos of this thing in existence, but the cinema coach is often seen with it. So it was thought that this would have been there to support the cinema coach, perhaps provide the power for it, and possibly it will also have provided power for work lighting or power tools, that sort of thing, although there is no confirmation of anything like that. Nobody can be sure when it was converted into a generator coach either, but they do know that it was prior to 1956. But the BR Blue only came out in 1965, so this livery must have been applied following that date. Unfortunately, the coach is no longer with us in real life. It was scrapped in 1971, and that's why it's so cool to see this thing existing in model form. So it's got to be one of the most obscure models ever. And because of that extreme obscurity, not very many of these models have been made. There's only 600 in total, 300 of these produced without lighting, and 300 of them produced with lighting. And they're actually available right now. This video is announcing the immediate release. If you're interested, I'll pop some links in the description. The unlit coaches are going to be £36 and the lit coaches are going to be £43, which is in line with the other manufacturer that is producing these coaches. Although, as we're going to see, these coaches are superior in terms of paintwork, detail, features and even performance. But all of that is coming in just a second. I do need to point out that this is a collaboration between myself and Hatton's, and therefore it's not a review. This coach was kindly lent to me by Hatton's, but because I haven't paid for it, I'm not going to be reviewing it. However, I have placed pre-orders for quite a few Hatton's Genesis coaches, which I will be paying for, and as soon as I get those, I will be doing reviews. So if you're interested in a review, stay tuned to the channel. But today, we're going to be taking a look at this coach. We'll see what it's like, and I hope you all enjoy having a close look. So here we go, let's get started. So as much as this isn't a review, this is still really fascinating to me because I've only ever looked at pre-production Genesis coaches before. So for the first time, I'm actually seeing what the packaging is like. And the answer is very, very compact, which means presumably they can fit more of them in a set space, which presumably saves on shipping costs, which is awesome. And also, this will be the first time I've actually looked at a production sample, so we're going to see what they actually look like if you're going to buy them, so that's cool as well. Okay, let me show you the end of the box then. So this is a 6-wheel third, that's the running number. It is in BR Blue and Grey with working lighting. So yes, this one does have the lights on board. And if you're interested in the product code, it's H4-6T-901-8L. And with that, there's nothing else really to see on the box, apart from just general drawings and bits of safety information. So I think for the first time, I'm going to pull this out. And I haven't had this out of the box yet. No, I have saved this until now. So this should be pretty interesting. So despite the small box, it's still got the proper vacuum formed packaging, which is cool. We've got some paperwork and accessories, which I didn't necessarily realise. So let's have a look at this. So we've got Genesis 4 and 6 wheel coach instructions. So removing the roof is the first thing. So it looks like there is a load of clips that hold the roof on, and this of course gives you access to the interior and also the lighting for adjustments or perhaps DCC fitting, as we can see below. So there's information on how you do that. And then this is interesting, at the bottom there's a section on removing the centre wheel set. Now I'm not exactly sure why you'd want to do that. Maybe it's for maintenance purposes, maybe it's so that you can run this as a four-wheel coach. I'm not sure, but if you need to do it, that's how you go about it. And then what have we got in here? This looks like it is going to be footboards, I think. But looking through the box though, it does seem as though the footboards are fitted. There's sort of two sets by the looks of it, one at the bottom with a gap in it, one at the top. So whether these are just spares or not, I'm not entirely sure, but they are made of metal, which is quality. Right, are you ready then? Let's have a look at this coach. So the top lifts off like that. Looks as though the coach is wrapped in plastic, but I'm just going to pop it out as best I can. Is that okay? Yeah, I think that's going to be fine. Wow. Okay. So the first thing that is immediately obvious looking at this is the quality. So yeah, the quality of the finish looks excellent. The paintwork is wonderful, as you can see, really lovely gloss / satin finish there. Also the footboards and such, these are clearly made of metal. They're not flexing under my fingers, and similar coaches from other brands have very flimsy plastic footboards, which you know, don't feel quite as good and they don't sit quite as flat. Looking underneath the model, we can see that we've got the outer wheels which sit into proper bearings, and if I give it a spin actually, look at that, crikey, they just go and go. Now I don't think those bearings are necessarily there for quality purposes. I think they are there to actually pick up power for the lights, but still that's a nice two birds one stone situation, isn't it? And then the centre axle, as you can see, sits on a sliding sled, and with some of the samples I looked at, these were getting stuck and they were causing derailments occasionally. Got to say the movement on this one is incredibly free and smooth. That's quite a nice bit of engineering right there, isn't it? Yeah, very nice. So I reckon that's going to work a treat, and that one's quite free rolling as well actually. Yeah, that's not bad. Right, so I think we'll take a much closer look at the level of detail. I think I will pop the roof off at some point as well, see if I can get eyes on the interior. And then obviously we'll get this down onto the track, we'll couple it up, just see how the couplings work and everything. I'll show you what it looks like as part of a train, and we'll also take a look at those lights and see what that effect is like. So this should be fun, let's get started. Let's take a closer look at this model then. Let's look at the paintwork, let's look at some of the details and see what this model has to offer. Hattons have opted for a quality finish with this, choosing to actually paint the bodies rather than just produce them in the right colour plastic. And this seems to have given them better control over the finish, which as you can see is very satin, very pleasing and quite realistic on there. The join between the blue and grey area on the side also looks really good and neat too, which is fantastic. The roofs are obviously quite easy to separately paint because they are separate parts, but as you can see there's a nice colour grey on there, which is perhaps a little bit less glossy than the bodywork, but I think that's logical and it makes sense. The door handles are separately painted, but they're also separately fitted as well, and you can get a sense of what fine parts those are. This paintwork here is meant to represent a grille, as far as I can tell, that the real coach would have. But of course the Hatton's Genesis range is quite generic, so clearly this coach body hasn't been tooled specifically to be the generator unit, they've just added the grille there in decoration. You've got the running number printed on there, which looks good, generator unit also on there too, and interestingly the sole bar, or the chassis, is also painted into the Intercity blue, which is another interesting creative choice, isn't it? And of course that offers a good contrast between that and the detail below, such as the footboards, the suspension springs and axle boxes, and the brake rigging and such, which you can see there on the underframe. In terms of detail and separately fitted parts, there's quite a lot to see with these as well. The glazing is separately fitted, as you can see, and it's very realistic. The way the light passes through it and bounces off it is just great looking, very glassy really. The detailing on the ends of these coaches is particularly impressive because obviously we're quite used to seeing detail here that is just part of the moulding and therefore quite soft, doesn't stand out very well. Well, there's nothing like that here because the grab rails here are real wire and separately fitted. The steps are also separate parts, also made of metal, which is very high quality. The lamp brackets, I mean, look at these, such tiny parts and yet still separately fitted. The vacuum pipes are very, very fine. They just look wonderfully realistic because of how slim they are and also because of the level of detail in them. And look, there's even very, very tiny chain link couplings. I think they're chain links. Yeah, they look like chain link couplings which are attached to equally tiny hooks on the ends. So that's a really, really nice feature to see pre-fitted on the model. I emphasise that these are pre-fitted because looking at those and compare it to the size of the coupling wouldn't be very easy for the user to do that themselves, so I think that's quite a good choice. The roof furniture is quite nice as well. I think this is the electric lit roof furniture, as you can see, and those are all separately fitted parts too, very nice and fine. The buffers here are made of metal, but they're painted, so they've got a realistic finish. These are just regular unsprung buffers. I should also mention that this is how all of the wheels on the models will look. Mine has a different centre set of wheels which has just been put in there for testing purposes, but on the models available for sale they will all have this disc type wheels, and that looks like this, which gives the coach a much more unified look in terms of the wheels. Removing the roof is not too bad actually. You do have to take it easy, obviously, but you can quite easily disengage those clips and pull the roof upwards. Now you have to be careful to lift the roof perpendicularly to the rest of the coach because those electrical pickup plungers are quite fragile and you certainly don't want to bend those out of alignment. But once the roof is off, you can get a look at the interior, which is quite well done. You can see that luggage racks are included on the Genesis coaches. I think that is true of all examples, and that's a really nice feature to see. There is no special generator equipment included on the interior though. As you can see, each compartment is made up of just standard seats. I suppose how much this matters to you will depend on what sort of modeler you are, but I guess you could do something about that if you wanted more realism. But I think that should just about do it for the level of detail. You can see, I think, what a quality model this is, quite objectively really. There is no visible glue, there are no parts that are wonky or misplaced, and the quality of certain components, such as the metal footboards, just makes the model feel quality as well. Those parts don't flex, they don't warp, they have the strength to maintain the correct position, which is awesome. So visually, that's what these coaches are like. Let's take a look at the performance, let's see how free rolling these are, and let's see what they look like as part of a train. For me, the question was, what on earth am I going to run with this thing? Because of course it's such an unusual item. So I've gone for the Bachmann Class 121, which is in a similar livery, and a couple of really old and crusty intercity coaches, for which I sincerely apologise for. The only issue is obviously the couplings on these old crusty coaches are not exactly in good shape, and they're also the old D-type. So just to demonstrate how the Hatton's Genesis couplings function, I've popped on a wagon with a matching coupling, and you can see that the coupling works no problem. The coupling design is quite interesting actually. I don't remember the couplings being like this on the samples I looked at. I guess they could have changed them, or it could just be my bad memory, but yeah, plenty of pivoting on them, which is really good. In terms of the lighting, if we take off the roof and look at the circuit board, you can see we've got a good number of LEDs fitted to the board there, and there's also a smoothing capacitor there too, and that will reduce flickering over points or perhaps where the power might be interrupted. Let's take a look and see what the lights actually look like then. So I am just on analog here, so there is no DCC decoder fitted to this coach, and I'm just going to apply power to it. So here we go. Oh yes, so as you can see, the LEDs inside there are warm to neutral white, I would say, which looks really quite nice and realistic. Looks like a tungsten light, doesn't it? And it works forwards and backwards in terms of the controller direction. So you've obviously got some sort of rectification going on inside there, which is great. And if I move it forwards and backwards, you shouldn't see too much in the way of flickering. And no, there isn't. So that's the capacitor. Obviously, if you've got large dead spots on your points and such, you're going to see some sort of flickering. If I cut it off, yeah, you can see the light sort of fades out, and that's the capacitor keeping them alive for a second or two before they go off. Right, let's talk about how free rolling this thing is then. And actually, the result is incredibly impressive. This coach rolled all the way down to Gordon's Hill, well on the way to the very bottom, which is fantastic. Which contrasts starkly with the other six-wheel coaches available on the market. And in comparison, I think the only suitable word to describe them is hopeless. And don't forget, the Hatton's coach is doing that with the extra pickups for lighting and such. And pickup drag was the reason cited by the other manufacturer of six-wheel coaches for the inconvenient battery-based lights that their coaches use, which is obviously not such a neat solution as just picking up power through the tracks like this one does. So the fact that these Hatton's coaches with the electrical pickups are rolling so freely just goes to show what utter rubbish that reasoning was. And in fact, I personally think the real reason was just because A, that's a cheaper solution with the batteries, and B, it was much easier and faster to develop in order to rush the product to the market. Now this is much, much better. Obviously you can control the lights via the track, or if you've got DCC, you can actually have individual control over the lights in each coach from the comfort of your controller, and you never have to worry about batteries or the weird tool that you need to switch on and off the lights. Yeah, this is the quality solution, and as you can see, it's much, much better. Right, let's back up the 121 and its coaches. I don't expect we'll have a very successful coupling here, which is why I demonstrated it with the coach. No, but really the aim of this particular test is to see how the coach handles itself around the layout. I did see a few derailments with the samples. I don't think I'm going to with this one because the centre sled that holds the middle wheels seems to be much, much better, and it doesn't seem to be sticking on this. So here we go. Go Bachmann 121, don't think I've ever showed that coupled to anything before. And here we have the very strange little generator coach. Handling the curves okay by the looks of things. And in fact, because I'm on analog and at 50% speed, the lights are nice and subtle. I think if you would run them on DCC, obviously, you would get the full power going to them. But on analog, yep, it's a little bit lower if you're not running at full power. But they still look good. You can still notice that they're on, and they still illuminate some of that interior detail, which is quite cool. So performance-wise, these seem to be very, very good. It's clear that the design was revised and improved upon since those samples came out. The movement of that centre sled is definitely better than it was before, and it's not catching on anything now, which is absolutely perfect. These coaches are quite weighty. They come in at 89 grams, which is pretty good and hefty, and yet because they are so free rolling, your little pre-grouping locos, which these ought to have been designed for, are not going to have any trouble hauling them despite the extra weight. And again, the same cannot be said of the other available six-wheel coaches. In other words, these are so much more fit for purpose. So there you have it. This is not a review, but hopefully this video demonstrates how wonderful the level of detail is, how high the quality is, and how fit for purpose these are in terms of performance. So if you're interested in getting one of these coaches, I am including links in the description. Obviously this particular coach in the blue and grey is a very, very limited edition, so if you want to get that specific one, you'd probably have to act quite fast. However, there are lots of other Genesis coaches in the range which are available now or soon to be available. And if you're interested in those, I do have several of those coaches pre-ordered, and I will start doing some proper reviews on those as soon as I get hold of them. But for now, from this product announcement, I will say thank you for watching. Thank you to Hatton's for wanting to use Sam's trains for this. It's been a pleasure and an honour to show this product off for the first time. I hope you guys, the viewers, enjoyed it. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you very, very soon. All right, cheers folks, take care.